Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Nightreign. Today we're taking a look at some cool, weird, or just useful things to know in the game. So let's get straight into it, but beginning with a few topics around my favourite Night Lord, Libra, the literal go. And I'm excited to reference Lofsky again after so long. As someone who posts incredible shots of characters and locations in quite a lot of the From Software games, but other ones too. But thanks to this screenshot, we're able to take a real look at Libra himself and discuss some of the weird details about his design. I'd also like to credit Ada2987_art for highlighting some specifics I want to mention here after the popular post about it. So let's start with the first horror here, the skin flap. Yeah, what you're looking at there isn't cloth that's covering his lower region, but skin. And if you pay attention, you can assess that Libra has taken off the sort of front layer of his chest, leaving it to hang. That creates this cloth-like part between his legs, but it's actually just this hanging skin from his chest, which is delightful. But what about the symbols that are actually across his torso that's now exposed in the way that he's got it? Well, those are insanely piercings rather than like markings drawn on him. You can see that they're physical rings and shapes connected to each other, probably actually made from counterfeit gold as per his Night Lord description. According to that, counterfeit gold can cause loss of sanity. The guy is also just covered in eyes, of course. The two hanging goat eyes between his warped horns hovering there, there's the two obvious ones on the side of his head. But then you got the line of them running down his forehead like the front of his face, and the many that horrifyingly nestle within his neck. Probably the least weird thing about this guy is the stuff that he uses to club us. So overall, incredible detail and design for this guy. But now something that should be quite handy while it's available. If you experience something that I've had happen to me twice now, which is get the Libra curse mid-run, and for whatever reason you're not able to cleanse it, there is a way that you can actually cleanse it at the end of the run. Now the problem with the Libra curse is that it's going to basically half your health for the rest of the run, which is not ideal. Basically Libra spawns in, is like pay me 15k runes or 35k runes based on the day that it is, or you get to have half health. And if this happens during a run where you just can't pay him, like the blue is moving in and he despawns, which is a really fun thing that can happen, you might just get screwed. But again, if you can make it to the end of the run, the Night Lord area, you can cleanse it. We had a commenter post about this, thanks to New Promises NA, who may have also got this from a popular Reddit post that I looked at. But basically, you've got the curse, you've made it to the Night Lord, you're crossing over to the main Night Lord door to go face the boss, and instead of doing that, you jump off the bridge on the way. This will kill you, resetting you to normal health now. Then you can just pick up the runes and if you need to, re-level. And this is a really simple way to cleanse that curse. Certainly not ideal, but it's a way that you can right now. It's probably unintended, so if you find yourself in that niche scenario, it's at least an option for the moment. Now to continue this topic of Libra for one more purpose, I want to talk about his different deals and what they actually mean, because this is the kind of thing that I've been questioning the whole time, and I know a few of them, but I don't know all of them, so I wanted to look into it. Let's start with Demon's Plating. This is when you get enhanced attack power based on the runes you currently have. It is only gained by paying that curse cost we just spoke of. If you pay it off, you and the whole team get this Demon's Plating buff. Anyway, the more runes you have, the more damage you deal. So if you've got that benefit, you might choose to not level at the end to face the Night Lord and go in with like 100k runes. Then of course we have the symbol of Avarice, which is the familiar Mimic Helm item. In this game, it's going to provide you with both increased runes while wearing it, but also item discovery, so for more drops. The cost here is while you're wearing it, you lose health slowly. But honestly, in my experience, that health loss is quite minor. It's a talisman technically, so if you feel that the health loss is a problem and you want to get rid of it, you can always just drop it at any time. But if you're interested in this one, basically choose the option for more runes when it's offered. I pretty much take it every time. Another fantastic one would be Eventual Greatness. You get increased health, stamina, and FP after a period if you're taking the deal with the Libra as a Night Lord at the end of the run. But if you take this during a run when you encounter Libra offering deals in day 1 or 2, then you have to survive until the end of the day before it gives you this increase. In the meantime, you'll have all 3 main resources cut into massively, which is a risk that is definitely worth it if you can survive until it triggers, but it makes things quite hard. I find it a lot more reliable at the Night Lord itself, since it doesn't take long to trigger. And then a quick mention of the other options. If you pick I Desire a Flask, you'll get an extra flask charge, but the downside is that you lose some max health. I'm not sure if that's worth it, but that's what it does. There's the power of a demon, giving you kind of bonuses at random, but gradually builds up madness. Definitely an unreliable one. There's I want to hold death at bay, basically giving you one death dodge. As you go low health, it just heals you, but overall your max health will be lost. It's something that might be worth it if you desperately need that protection. Then you have the stat related ones, expand your intellect, great dexterity, strength, or deep faith. This increases the one that you pick, but costs the other stats, so I'm not a huge fan of this either. You can also do powerful weapon, which gives you at least a purple weapon, but then it costs 2 levels. The last one that's quite funny is I want to gain many levels, which basically just gives you a few levels, but you lose a level every time you use a flask. So another one I wouldn't recommend. Oh, and of course, you can fight Libra even when he's out in the world offering the deals before the Night Lord. You just attack him like normal. He turns into a wandering boss fight with the same mechanics and details, but with a lot less health, obviously. Still very dangerous, but in exchange, you get a pile of runes, but you'll have 3 fantastic talisman options in most cases. Now let's bounce around a few different topics. Like the fact that it's technically possible to land a critical strike on a target at the same time as another player, maybe even 2 players. I've done this quite a couple times now, and never has it been intentional. It feels like there needs to be some sort of latency or lag that's occurring to allow it to occur. But I've done it and also seen it enough times now that it is something that can happen if you try it. And it's worth it because you're essentially getting double the damage. 2 players getting critical damage instead of 1, or 3 of them, is obviously great. The best I can really offer on this one is to run around to the critical spot, and as another player does the same thing, you just try to trigger it at the exact moment you think they're going to trigger it. If you're on voice with a friend, I guess you could do a countdown, but in those moments during stuns, there's not a lot of time, is there? Just knowing it's possible and going for it though, sometimes will cause it, and it leads to great damage. Speaking of weird lag with these criticals, did you know you can actually critically attack your allies? It's technically possible, and I'm not sure why, but basically if you're reviving an ally like we see in this clip, if you're doing attacks to them while behind, you might accidentally trigger a backstab. It doesn't hurt them. The whole point is you're meant to be attacking your ally to get them back up, but I guess the game gets very confused if you do a light attack at their back with the revive damage triggering a backstab. So maybe see if you can do it to your friends and see what reaction you get. Now some really useful information, like say boss resistances. Now I wish I could credit this accurately. It comes from an original post by someone on Reddit called Extension Pressure 50, who basically found this information that was all in Japanese made by a Japanese player. And he provided no credit or original link. However, another Reddit user by the name of Cesladona decided to translate it themselves because there wasn't a good translation. He was also unable to find the original source. So it's unfortunate, but at least we can see the information, which is incredible details about boss resistances. Now obviously, you know that Gladius is weak to Holy, and so ideally, Holy will help you kill it, right? But do you know that it's completely immune to madness? Do you know that it's actually quite vulnerable to poison, to frost? This information is actually quite important. So if we take a look at the graph, we can see some interesting details. Like for example, the Augur, aka Maris, is completely immune to both poison and bleed. So those are going to be useless in that fight. Or say the final boss, Hjolstor. You've got complete immunity to poison, bleed, frost, madness. Knowing that these things are completely useless there is pretty important. You'll also see some interesting details with the actual weaknesses and resistances as well. But what about something like Adele, who's really weak to poison, sure, but is super resistant to lightning? Noster the Moth is super resistant to magic in specific. So the next time you do a run, maybe take a look at this graph and consider what kind of damage types you better avoid, rather than just the obvious main weakness of that target. On the topic of really useful information, I'd like to highlight this post on the Reddit by Crazy Flips, who basically provided this ridiculously long list of all possible effects that you can find on relics, and the list is absolutely massive. So if you happen to be interested, I'll be telling Josh to put the link to this in the description and you can go check it out yourself. Could be handy to know what's actually possible and what isn't. Right, a couple of funny ones for you. Did you know that you can actually riposte and backstab with a shield? Yes, if you're two-handing it, it becomes your main weapon, right? You can hit with it. This is actually a handy thing to know if you're in, say, the mines dealing with those stone enemies. Blunt damage does great damage to them, so if you have a shield, you could use that as a main weapon. But anyway, you can also riposte and backstab, and so some enemies, weak to blunt damage like Crystarians, could be a reason to do that. Here's a kind of PSA warning about boss dormant powers glitching out. This was posted by Space King 264 on the Reddit, and basically they were fighting the Royal Carrion Knight, and she died next to a wall where the dormant powers kind of slightly spawned up to the right in the wall. So after he finally gets revived, they run over and try to pick up the dormant power and cannot physically do it, which sucks in this case because there's a legendary there. Basically, just be very careful where you kill bosses right now. If they die too close to a wall, something like this could happen. To go further into this same concept then, I want to highlight the fact that you can use this to your advantage. You may have been fighting different dragons, right? And notice that they slide up the walls in the middle of a fight based on the awkward terrain. There's some weird interactions there, but it can be actually a useful thing. As I talked about in a recent episode, fall damage is still a thing for your enemies. So if you're on the castle walls, you could shove a knight off the side and they'll die to fall damage. But take the magma worm here, thanks to this post, by this ridiculous username. The magma worm charges, it charges up the wall, glitches up, and then falls to its death with its own fall damage. So if you know an enemy has some sort of charge attack like the magma worm, you can intentionally face it into a high wall and see if you can bait it into going up and dropping down for a super fast kill. Definitely worth trying if you see the opportunity. Here's a quick one for Revenant players. You can actually jump off the back of your summons like Frederick, as if you're running into a wall and double jumping. This can be useful to get a little bit higher reach, do a plunge attack on an enemy, or maybe say you're fighting Ogre and he's flying around, could be a way to get some melee hits on this normally out of reach enemy. Just a fun idea. And lastly, I want to reference the detail to do with dead players that can appear in your world from other worlds. Basically, if a dead player dies recently in a spot that you're currently at, you'll see them as a dead red ghost, and if you loot them, you get all of the things they had at the time. If you didn't realize, if you walk into other players' shades like this, it also gives you a little bit of ultimate art charge, which is cool, but the loot they drop is important, because it all comes with passives tied to the Nightfarer that they were. So it's that Nightfarer's name plus grief. What the grief passive specifically does is provide some of the main 2 scaling stats as a bonus passive. So an extra level to say strength and dexterity if it was a wilder and his greatsword or whatever. So if you are playing Duchess and you find a dead Duchess and you pick up multiple of that dead Duchess's items, you'll get multiple levels of dexterity and intelligence, the main scalers, which can certainly be some potent stat stacking for a little bit. This is a relevant bonus that you might hope to find on a relic just as a 3rd slot, so it's not a small thing. But yeah, that brings us to the end. I hope you learned something new or just found that interesting. But if you guys have any more suggestions or want to add to these topics we talked about, then let us know in the comments, or we might include it next time. But until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.